Yesterday, we told you about how Yellow Cab in Chicago had filed for bankruptcy.
The filing came just hours after a Cook County jury awarded $26 million to a lawyer who suffered severe brain damage in a Yellow Cab accident in 2005. According to personal injury attorney Robert Clifford, plaintiff Mark Jacobs and his wife may never see a dime because of the bankruptcy. Yellow Cab says it will continue to operate and plans to appeal the jury verdict.
So what does this verdict and subsequent bankruptcy mean for any cab passenger? Will you be covered and insured if a taxi you're riding in is involved in an accident?
A lot of important questions. Joining us on the phone right now is Grant Dixon, who's a personal injury attorney from the Dixon Law Offices in LaGrange. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dina.
We've been talking a lot about the protections you may get in a taxi cab versus Uber. Uber has had a lot of criticisms. You say if you're in a cab, you're going to have these kind of protections. But it looks like, based on this case, there is no recourse for people.
Yeah, there's very limited insurance that's supplied in any cab. In the city of Chicago, it's a mandatory minimum of $350,000. In most accidents, that's sufficient. Uber has some questions about it because they claim they carry some insurance. Some places say they don't. The real concerning thing here is in serious accidents, such as what happened to the Jacobs family, the cab companies are trying to skirt their responsibility and not be responsible for what happened here. And that's really disconcerting for anybody who rides in any cab in the city of Chicago.
It certainly is. Is this a game changer in the cab industry? I think we've all just assumed and taken for granted that we would be covered in the event of an accident. We're not, right?
You're covered to a very limited extent. I think what it really is a game changer is this should be a wake-up call to the city council and, more importantly, to the legislators in Springfield that they need to raise the mandatory minimum for insurance. Because $350,000, while it might be significant for most cases, in catastrophic cases such as what happened to the Jacobs family, it doesn't even begin to cover their medical bills. And cab companies, no defendant, no company should be able to get out from underneath the responsibility that a jury hearing the evidence decides that they're responsible for. And by declaring bankruptcy, what Yellow Cab Affiliation is trying to do is they're saying, I don't like what this jury did, so I'm going someplace else. And that's just not fair.
Absolutely. You look at this and you think perhaps the judgment of $26 million is to blame for all of this, but in the bankruptcy filing, Yellow Cab said they're $50 million in debt, so even other small accidents wouldn't have been covered.
Yeah, I've examined the bankruptcy filing, and it's curious. One of the things that the bankruptcy judge will do immediately, I'm sure on a motion from the Jacobs family, will be to examine whether this filing for bankruptcy was made in good faith. And while Yellow Cab is got a significant number of debts, they're a large company. They operate hundreds of cabs in the city and elsewhere, and they're going to have a lot of debt just in the normal operating course. But there's a rule called the one debt rule in the bankruptcy code that says that if you're filing bankruptcy simply because you have one debt, trying to get out from underneath that one debt, the judge will likely disapprove the bankruptcy and say this is not appropriate bankruptcy and it may not even be in good faith, and if she'll send them back to the state court to let them fight that out.
Explain their insurance policy. We all have to have insurance. It's required by the state of Illinois as individual drivers. Was Yellow Cab self-insured? How does that work?
Yeah, some companies will self-insure. They can post a bond. Other companies, and I'm pretty sure Yellow Cab as well, has a private insurance company that sells the insurance, but it's only a limited amount. Just like on your car, if you have $100,000 worth of insurance, the insurance company is only going to cover up to $100,000 of that damage. In a case where you're in an accident, you're responsible for the full amount of that loss. If you cause $26 million, you're going to be responsible for $26 million worth of that harm that you've caused. What's concerning is that Yellow Cab Affiliation is going to continue to operate, continue to make money as a profitable business, and yet try and get out from underneath this particular verdict simply because they don't like the number that 12 people said was reasonable. And that's wrong. And it's actually concerning to anybody who's injured in an accident.
Yeah, it certainly is.
It sure is, and it gives you pause to get into a cab or an Uber, yeah.
Mr. Dixon, thank you so much.
Make sure you've got good insurance.
You bet. Mr. Dixon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dina.